My wife and I had a burden to bring young people of our church together with the young people in our church at GYC. And so we began to organize taking everybody to Louisville this year, at the end of last year and the beginning of this year. And so that's what this is all about today, is so that our young people can get up and share with you about GYC and their experience there. What is GYC? A youth-initiated and led movement of Seventh-day Adventists from diverse backgrounds, united in a common commitment to serious Bible study, intense prayer, uncompromising lifestyle, and boldness in sharing Christ with others. Their vision is to uphold the distinctive message of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, to aspire to excellence in all aspects of their lives, academic, professional, and spiritual, to embrace the call to radical discipleship, including a life of missionary service, and to be supportive and respectful of denominational leadership while remaining a youth-led movement. That last sentence is pregnant with importance. So they say, their mission statement, they say this: there exists today an army of dedicated young people within the Seventh-day Adventist Church who yearn to demonstrate Nehemiah's leadership, Daniel's integrity, Mary's humility, Paul's passion for evangelism, and Christ's love for God and humanity. It's the goal of GYC and its members to seek and galvanize such young people. We aim to mobilize existing youth and young adult ministries that are fully committed to the distinctive message and mission of the Adventist Church towards the proclamation of the three angels' message. Now, I picked this off of Wikipedia. GYC, Generation of Youth for Christ, is an annual conference and expression of Adventist theology which organizes and coordinates Bible studies, online sermons, regional youth conferences, mission trips, global networking opportunities for young people, week of prayers, and youth camp meetings. It began with a small group of Korean students. You saw Justin Kim up there. It began with a small group of Korean students studying their Bibles together all night. And it developed through middle of the night text messaging between the university students, one in Massachusetts, the other in California. They decided to call people together for a small conference in the woods of California. They invited 200 people and 400 attended. That was in 2002. Since then, the popularity of the conventions has grown. In 2010, they registered 5,100. The main worship service on Sabbath, there were over 7,000 people, including many local church members. We were there in Louisville. It was the second largest GYC. They had 3,956 people registered, and 5,000 were there for the weekend. And at this time, let me get out of the way and let our young people speak.
Hello, everyone. It's kind of funny. This is my first time to actually be helping in the real service. I've sung many times, but this is the first time I've actually spoken up here. As you see, we've explained a bit about what GYC is, and at every GYC they have kind of like a motto which comes from a verse in the Bible, and it kind of represents what all the sermons are going to be about. So the motto this time was called, chosen, and faithful. Mariah read the verse for us, and it's very interesting how these themes of the sermon kind of go along with my personal walk with Jesus. And in this theme, the part that really stood out to me was the part about being faithful, because in each of the sermons they called us as a generation. They told us that we were called and we were chosen, and that we needed to be faithful to this call. We need to be faithful to Jesus Christ in these last days. And this can be kind of worrying, because I knew that in me and my own walk with Jesus that I cannot be faithful of myself. I don't have it in me to be faithful. And so that kind of worried me throughout the seminars until we had this one sermon where he was really going through what being called and chosen, being faithful means. And he said, we can't be faithful. We don't have it in ourselves to be faithful, but God has called us. He has chosen you, and his faithfulness will carry you through, his strength. So that's something that stood out to me. On Friday of the long weekend, they gathered all the youth into school buses, and they took us into the streets of Louisville, Kentucky. And we handed out literature and asked people if they wanted free Bible studies, if they wanted free health seminars. And I'm going to tell a bit about an experience I had we walked up to this house, and the lady opened the door. And when someone opens the door, there's always this level of extreme like nervousness, like how are they going to act to you? How are they going to respond to what you have to offer? And we were in a very not nice part of town. The houses were run down, there's trash everywhere. The woman opened the door and she smiled at us, which is something that was kind of unique, because typically all the people before that had just like been very grumpy to us. And we introduced ourselves, told her what we had to offer, and she seemed interested, but she said that she was busy, and she asked us to come back later. And so we left. And we came back later. We were unsure. I was unsure if she had just wanted to send us away, trying to be polite, or if she was actually interested. But we knocked on the door, and no one came, and no one came. And then we heard like all kinds of yelling and screaming, and then we could see through the door because the door is open. She just had a screen glass door, and we could see her stomp past. She was yelling and cursing at her husband, and she knocked over something. There's a lot of crashing in the house, and she stomped off. She was crying and like crying to herself and yelling at her husband. And so we waited, and we could see two of the children through the window. And finally, one of the little children, he must have been like, one of the little boys, he must have been like 4 years old. And he was like, I don't think anyone's going to come to the door today. And so the way he said it was just like, this fighting in the house is so normal, and I'm sorry. That was his tone of voice. And so we were able to leave a couple of books there. We didn't have very much to give. We weren't given very much because we went out with the intention of signing people up for Bible studies, so we didn't have very many books with us, but we were able to leave some things. And so I hope that if that woman was actually interested, that she will be able to find God, and that family will be able to have a happy home. The thing is, we really don't know. Like, we are in these many hundreds of doors we knocked on. We were in those people's lives for maybe 1 minute, and as we leave, we really don't know like what impact we had on those people's lives. So all I can do is I'm praying for that family, that maybe through the things we gave them, they will be able to find Jesus.
Hello. On the first night that we arrived, we went to the first sermon, the keynote address by Natasha Neblett, where she talked about her relationship with God and how each of our relationships are different and unique in their own way. And when God died for us, he kind of made vows in a way with us. How in sickness and health he'll be there with us, rich or for poor, he'll always be there no matter what. And, even when I'm being hard-headed, stubborn, unloving, he's always there to pick me up when I fall, to hold me when I cry, and to have arms wide open when I'm ready to love him back. It's also amazing that, there's someone that loves you so much that took his time to make sure that you're perfect and wants nothing but the best for you. And God's grace is bigger than any of my mistakes that I've ever done. There have been so many times that I've messed up that I'm happy that God never says, "This is the last time I'll put you back together." How cool is it that the same God that created mountains and oceans and galaxies and puppies looked at you and thought the world needed one of you too? It was only recently that I discovered how deep and strong God's love really is, and how he's able to change my life for the better. Because, Jesus died on the cross knowing that we might never love him back, and that's true love. Because the things that I've experienced at GYC in the previous years when I went to Orlando, it was that, some of my experiences, it was kind of going through a hard time because I just recently lost my mom. So being there opened up my eyes to accept him more and understand why he did what he did. And going back again, having a strong relationship made that more concrete and stronger because, I've learned that even though sometimes we doubt him, he's always there to correct our minds, to let him know that he still loves us, to let us know that he still loves us, and he's always there, even when sometimes we may hate him or question him in anything. So, yeah.
Good morning again. My favorite part of the GYC was the social interaction with other people, because if you know me, you know that I really enjoy to talk. So that was definitely my forte that week. It was fun to hang out with our group that we went with. One afternoon, Renee and Emily, Alex and Kiel and me, we went into downtown Louisville and we're just walking around. We ended up going ice skating, which isn't the funnest thing to do when it's really cold and windy at the end of December, but we still had a good time. The last night of GYC, we're in the room. It's about 12 o'clock. And Bill, he just rolls over out of the blue. None of us were asleep. And he says, "Boys, I need some ice cream. Who wants to go get ice cream?" So, it was me and Reno, who the other fellow that came with us. And, what guy's going to say, "Oh, I don't want any ice cream" at 12 o'clock at night? So we get up and we go. And to give you kind of a picture of what you would be seeing as we walk to the hotel, I was in my camouflage pajama pants and a T-shirt with my cowboy boots. And Bill, his shirt was on like inside out, and the other guy's, his shirt was on backwards. We really weren't with it all the way. We were just going to get ice cream. We were on a mission. And we got to the elevator, and outside the elevator was about 8 people just sitting on the floor eating pizza and just hanging out. And so we talked to them for a little while. They went down and we got our ice cream. We came back up and we talked to them for a little bit more. Then Bill, he said, "I'm too old for this. I'm going to bed." And Raina and I, we went back and got our guitars, and we went back and we sang and we played guitar for them for about 2 hours. And by the time I left, there was about 15 or so people there, just hanging outside the elevators. So that was a really cool way to end GYC, just to have fun. The girls were all jealous in the morning because we didn't wake them up to come do it with us. The funniest conversation, which actually ended up being one of the best for me, was on outreach. I was with a different group than the rest of them, and it was me and 3 other guys. We were working this one neighborhood, and 2 of us were on each side of the street. And I'm walking to the next house, me and my partner, and a guy pulls up, an older gentleman, and his wife pull up in a car beside of us and stop us. And he said, "Hey boy, do you want to get shot?" And I said, without thinking twice, I said, "No, that ain't real high on my agenda for today." And he said, and he's like, and he got around to the point, and they had a no soliciting policy there. And so he said, "We don't want what you're giving out. We don't want you here. You need to leave." And me, that really rubbed me wrong. I was pretty mad. I got back on the bus, and "You want us to leave? Well, fine, we'll leave. We didn't want to do it anyways here." And we went to the next neighborhood. And about halfway through, we came to this house with a lady probably in her mid-50s. She was working in her garage. And I went up to her, and I, gave the whole line, "Hey, we're with a youth conference here in downtown Louisville." And she goes, "I know you. You're the Seventh-day Adventist." And I said, "Do I have a look about me? I mean, I'm not wearing a T-shirt or anything, And she said, "No, I'm the one that booked your conference at the Marriott Hotel." And she said, "I know all about you." And it was in the way that said, "Is that a good thing you know or a bad thing you know?" It actually was a good thing, because she ended up getting signed up for about 3 or 4 seminars, including the Daniel and Revelation one, which is the big one that we were trying to get everybody signed up for, and Bible study. She was not an Adventist. She had been a Methodist, but she really wasn't going to church or anything anymore. So it really showed me that the verse from Romans 8:28 that says, "And we know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are the called according to his purpose." It really is true. Because the first neighborhood, it was just door slamming your faces and a bunch of bitter people. And the second neighborhood was much more receptive and much friendlier, and we had a really cool experience.
Hello. This past GYC was really special to me because my first GYC that I attended was in Louisville, Kentucky back in 2009, and it had a significant impact on my life. I was just starting college then, and I didn't really see my need for God, but God really made himself known to me there. And this year was extra special because there was a girl that we met, Miranda, and Brittany Brown called me up to see if Shoma and I had room in our car for one person, and we said yes. And the only thing that we were told was that she was a non-Adventist and that she lived near Charlotte. And I got in touch with her, and found out that she's an ASU alum, and she graduated this past May. And when we finally met up with her to go to GYC, she told us a little bit more about how she got the chance to go this year. And she met Pastor Eric Lau, who he pastors in Texas, and she met him 10 years ago on an online video game. And he was in South Africa at the time, because that's where he's from, and they just kept in touch since then. And she got in touch with him on some spiritual things, and he had been inviting her to GYC for a number of years, but for whatever reason, she couldn't go. But through some experiences in her life, and especially this summer, she sensed her need for God, and she really wanted to connect with him and draw closer to him, so she thought GYC was a good opportunity. And we just connected really well with her, Joe and I just feel like it was a divine appointment, with just like our personalities and experiences and interests. And she just soaked everything up. She loved the sermons and the seminars and meeting the people. And what was really awesome was that on Sabbath, Mark Finley preached for divine service, and she came up for the appeal for baptism. And I wasn't actually sitting with her. I just saw her walking up, and I'd been praying for her. And she's actually currently in Santa Clara, California right now. Glow is doing a mission to distribute 1 million Glow tracts pre-Super Bowl and during the Super Bowl. And so she's over there right now with that mission. And I'm sure you all are going to see her sometime soon, because she has a brother that goes to ASU, and she comes to visit him sometimes. And she said that she would love to come visit the church. And watching her experience, her first experience at GYC here, and it being in Louisville, Kentucky, it reminded me of my own experience. And sometimes I wonder if GYC is still relevant sometimes. But seeing her experience made me believe that God is still very much in the movement, and people are still meeting God there, and I was blessed by that.
At GYC, I had a personal experience when Sebastian Braxton preached his sermon, "We Shall Overcome." He talked about how when he first started going to church, everyone said they loved how he was on fire for the Lord. And he said it was because he had given up so much, so he wanted to trust in God 100%. He went on to talk about how picking his religion for himself and being born into it are two different things. And that is something that stood out to me, because I was born into a Seventh-day Adventist home. And so as a child, I never had to make that decision. But now, as I am getting older, I realize that it can no longer be my family's religion, and it has to be my own. I have to make and have a deeper understanding of Jesus, and that is why I've decided to start Bible studies. Sebastian also went on to say, "We continue to follow others because we are afraid to fail on our own. What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail?" As a young person, being afraid to fail is something that happens commonly. And oftentimes, the topic of religion comes up, and I sit back and listen instead of sharing God's love, which is what we should be doing, because he died on the cross for us, and so we owe him that much. I want to leave one more thing with you guys. We should not only shun evil, but pursue good and find grace in the eyes of each other.
Good morning. Okay, so before GYC, I had always prayed, and I knew God loved me, but after GYC, it was like I wanted to pray more often. I found myself praying way more often in the day, and it was a really good experience. And the outreach, we went, and Emily was one of my partners, and we were knocking on doors, and it was my turn to knock on a door. And I went up and I knocked on the door, and a girl, she was maybe between 11 and 13, and she came to the door, And we gave her the thing, and we were telling her about it, and she signed up for Bible studies. So I hope that went well with her. And before GYC, I probably wouldn't have wanted to go on the outreach. Like for our VBSs at our other church, we had done the outreach for VBS, but it was never, it was something that we just kind of did. But with GYC, I wanted to go, and I was looking forward to it, and that was really cool. And it was also really cool to see all the other Adventist youth that came from all over the world, and it was just neat to see that you are not the only one in your faith, even though it seems like that.
Brethren, what you've been seeing is the future of your church. Remember also your Creator in the days of your youth, before the evil days come, and the years draw near when you will say, I have no delight in them. The conclusion when all has been heard is fear God and keep His commandments, because this applies to every person. For God will bring every act of judgment, everything which is hidden, whether it's good or evil.